Yeah, so I think I'll be discussing about science, technology, and society and how they interact with each other.
Okay.
And this is,
Start.
yeah, so this is from a course that I had. So in this course, they basically discuss about science, technology, and society from the aspects of like the philosophy of science, the history of science, the sociology, and those kinds of things.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So
So,
basically, yeah, to discuss first, we have to define what technology is.
hmm,
Like, what kind of definition do you have for technology, or what kind of definition do you know?
see, from my point of view, technology is anything that enhances your ability to perform some task or improves its efficiency or makes it easier, faster, and somehow. So that's what technology is.
Yeah,
And okay, I'll also add one more thing before that. So mostly when these days, whenever I hear the word technology, mainly people uh, mostly refer by technology. They mostly refer to IT or computers. Means tech means yes, computers, and the
yeah,
rest of the other kind of things they say is engineering. But I think that all kind of engineering is technology. In mechanical, electrical, everything is technology. Okay, so
yeah, you're right. So basically, according to this course, the definition for technology is that it is the medium through which human beings will interact with nature.
okay,
Yeah, so it involves
okay,
the way in which human beings select the different aspects of nature and manipulate it.
hmm,
So those kind of
okay. That is
that is overall what technology is defined as. As for science,
okay,
the science can be defined in multiple different, just like technology, science also can be defined in multiple different ways. First
okay,
way, or the way most people understand science, is that it is an inquiry into the nature of reality,
okay.
right?
Yes. Hmm,
Like how,
yes.
and let's see. So science also is a social institution which has
Okay.
predefined
Hmm.
norms. Actually, there are four norms given by some person called Robert Martin.
What are those norms?
There are four norms called universalism, communism, disinterestedness, and organized skepticism.
Okay.
These are the
So
four.
what do they mean?
Yeah, so these are the four norms that science has to follow. So universalism means, if I remember correctly, universalism. Just a second. Yeah, universalism basically means science should be open to everyone.
Okay. When in the sense
Everyone
that
should be
everyone
able to.
can. Okay.
Yeah, everyone should be allowed to learn about
Pursue
the
it.
nature of reality.
Okay.
Basically, right?
Hmm.
Communism
Okay.
is there should be a sense of community. Basically, a scientific discovery should be shared among the community.
Hmm.
Disinterestedness means you should be not be interested in the financial, political, or other kinds of benefits of science.
Hmm.
If you're doing a scientific discovery, it should be purely from a curiosity point of view.
Okay.
And organized skepticism, I guess this is the most obvious one, that we should be skeptical of any claims anyone is making in when
Hmm.
it comes to science.
Yes. Okay.
And one another definition given is it is a transition from the unknown to the known.
Okay.
So when you have an unknown phenomenon and
Hmm.
you're able to explain it,
Hmm.
that becomes known. So that process is science.
Yes.
And so there are multiple different ways science, technology, and society may interact with each other. But the three most basic ways defined in this course is that first one is called the linear model, which basically means that there is a one-way relationship between science, technology, and society. So like science will lead to technology, and then technology will lead to the development of society. But there is another model called the interactionist model,
Okay.
which says that science and technology both interact with each other. It will both will influence each other. As a whole, the society will be influenced by both science and technology. And the third one is called the embedded model, in which society is the super class, and inside society we have science and technology juggling between each other.
Okay.
These are three models. None of them are correct or wrong per se like that, but these are just different ways of viewing them. And one other, in terms of main topics, this is what I wanted to discuss. One other point that I read was that science, like I said in the linear model, science is said to be the root, and then science lead to technology. But there have been many cases where technology precedes science. Meaning we have found, I mean, such as, I'm not sure of example, I will have to think, but what I'm trying to say is that we know we found a way of doing something, but we cannot explain it with science how it is being done.
Got it.
So actually, those three were the main topics I wanted to discuss today.
So I think so. I can find one example about technology preceding science. So I think things like agriculture. So that is, I don't know if you can call it technology, but it is somehow you're trying to like breeding certain breeds of both plants and animals so that they produce a certain kind of grains or foods that are much more uh, easier to consume or things like that. Okay, I remember one example. I think so. It came during our finance class about tulips. So certain breeds of tulips were, certain colors of tulips were much more popular for some reason, and it was around 1600s or 1500s. This situation came up. So people started breeding those kind of tulips. So there is something, but at that time they had no idea about genetics or anything inside those things. People didn't have knowledge about at the molecular level or at the cellular level of organisms. But they still somehow did it on a superficial level. They knew how things work, but they didn't knew the underlying science behind it. So I think so you can call that in a way that it's technology has preceded science in that manner. In this case.
I think another example could be of the discovery of fire.
Yes.
People were using fire even when they did not understand how it works.
Yes.
Or people creating prehistoric, those kinds of tools with stones.
And those are kind of engineering, but yes, again.
Yeah. You use those tools to break into things, but you don't know the composition of the things you're breaking. Still, you are using a particular tool to break into things.
But on the other hand, where science precedes technology is something like a building a rocket and sending it to space. So means first of all, you have to know the laws of physics, like the laws of motion, to calculate the precise things, precise angles and trajectories and velocities required to send it to orbit and make it land in another planet, in the surface of another planet. So you have to know the science first before you can implement it as an engineering output. Yes. So.
Yeah.
And Another thing, yes, you mentioned about the linear model. So can you say can you just describe it once more what that was?
Linear model. So these three models that I mentioned, they were like a framework to understand the relationship between science, technology, and society. So in
Okay.
linear model, it is suggested that science influences technology,
Hmm.
and technology in turn will lead to social development. So it is a one-way relationship. Science will
Okay.
lead to technology, and technology will lead to social development.
Hmm.
An interactionist model is saying that science and technology both have a two-way interaction, and then both will then lead to the development of society.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of certain examples of these kind of models. Uh, yeah, so I think so. Quantum computing is one example of, maybe you can say, linear model, because uh, there are many examples of quantum computing is one of them, because during the earlier ones, early periods of 20th century, this quantum mechanics, this model, the whole not model, but the concept came into being. But for a long time, it was only a science. And, I think so. It wasn't very long before technologies were built upon the concepts of quantum mechanics and all of on that area. But these days we have the computers.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how long this it has been, the
Since
work?
what?
Hello,
Hello.
can you? Yes,
Yeah. How long has it been since what?
since the work people have been working on quantum computers.
Sure. Let me see.
But at the very least, I know that it hasn't been long before, means since they have actually created a quantum computer. Because I think
Yeah.
in the
So
past
I
1 year,
I think here I just searched and it is saying that quantum computers were proposed in the 1980s by Richard Feynman and Yuri Manin.
okay. So maybe so. I think the concept of quantum mechanics and everything came around the 19th, second decade of 20th century. So it wasn't until the 80s. So as per given information, it wasn't until the 80s, maybe 60,
Yeah.
70 years before, they even thought of making a technology based on the science. And I think so, if I'm not wrong, it's probably in the last 1 or 2 years that an actual functioning quantum computers are being built. Because
Yeah.
I remember I watched a video, I think a few months back, about quantum computers. It was made by Marcus Brownlee. So yeah, so it was a few months ago. So yes, it's not a, it's just, it's a very recent invention. So it took about a century for it to be for technology to be built on a scientific invention. And now, yes, there'll be different use cases that will make its impact on society.
I think
I
there
don't
is a
know.
limit, and there must be a limit to which technology can like precede science.
Okay,
Like what
technology
I
and
mean is
physics.
that
Hmm.
uh, someone born today
Hmm.
without learning anything about science may be able to come up with certain things by mistake or by
Uh,
just exploring nature.
uh,
Like fire, someone may come across by accident. Someone may
hmm.
think of creating a tool to do certain things.
Okay.
But beyond a certain point, I think without knowing the science, it is not possible to progress technology further.
Yes, definitely. Means the basic things can be made
Yeah.
without much knowledge, but beyond a certain point, you'll need to know underlying workings of the universe, means how the physical reality works. If you don't know gravity, then you'll never know how to escape it. Suppose someone thinks, look, I want to escape the Earth. But
Yeah.
suppose someone in the medieval periods, in 1300s and 1400s, they think that I want to escape the Earth. How am I going to do it? What is actually keeping me here? There was no concept of gravity there. So if you don't know gravity, you don't know how what to escape. So definitely you can come up with a technology like that. So at least yes. Again, to materialize a technology that requires another kind of things, but at least, for example, certain technologies like creating a time machine or the ability to travel at light speed. So those are something we are not able to do right now. Maybe it's because we do not know the nature, the fundamentals of nature too well. I mean, well enough to create technologies out of it. So that's so if you want to create those kind of technologies, first of all, you have to know the science behind it. Unless we do that, we won't be able to do it. Create the technologies.
Yeah.
So as you have said it, that and another thing I can say about is certain difference between a scientific mindset and an engineering mindset. So I think I have realized it mostly through programming. So sometimes during programming, and later I have realized that it doesn't only apply to programming, but it applies to any kind of practical work. Like if you are doing some building, any kind of, if you are doing some mechanical engineering work or doing some architecture work, it applies to that as well. This is what I've seen. Most of the time, you might not know each and every line of code, what it does and how it exactly does it. But if you know that, okay, this piece of code does this thing, and if I just modify it around a little bit here and there, I can make things work. And as long as it works, so you might make an application that works, but if you may not know each and every line, why and how it works. Have you ever experienced it or not? I just want to.
Yeah, in terms of programming, I have, but I think that also is a case because the way technology has progressed or the this programming languages has progressed nowadays, a lot of concepts are abstracted.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to know how it works behind the scenes.
Hmm.
But if you were trying to program when it was initially being started, say in assembly
Yes.
language or those lower level machine languages, you have to know each line, what each line does. Otherwise, the machine will not respond. So it is a natural evolution of the technology of programming languages. I think in same in other, I guess in other engineering branches also. Ultimately,
Okay.
when someone has to build a building, when it comes to putting the bricks together,
Hmm.
the one who is putting the bricks together has to know precisely what he has to do.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
But the one who is designing it, he doesn't have to actually know how to bricks are being put together. He just needs to know theoretically that this kind of bricks needs to be used, or this is the dimension it has to be for a building to be like a strong foundation. But he doesn't have to worry about the actual building process because someone else is worrying about that. If he designs a building that is impossible, then the person who is laying the bricks or the constructor, he will object and say this is physically not possible as of now.
Okay.
So I think there is still a necessary, there is a need to understand uh, at a detailed level, at least for someone, depending on their job.
Yes. Yes. Okay. That is one point of view of saying it. But the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes you might understand certain things theoretically very well, but you might not be able to do it. Means, for example, suppose cooking. I have read lots of things. Suppose you might read books upon books, watch videos upon videos of cooking, but you've never done it. So,
Yeah.
in theory, if someone asks you to create a proper meal plan, you might in theory create it. In the sense that you are an academic and someone asks you, a nutritionist expert. someone asks you that, okay, this is my calories, this is my body composition, my age, my height, weight, everything, and I want you to, and these are my goals. Suppose gaining weight or losing weight, and you have to create a meal plan. So in theory, you'll be able to create it, but you won't be able to cook those meals because you don't have the hands-on experience about that. And
Yeah.
that is something I've experienced about programming as well. So suppose C, C++, they might say that, okay, these are certain techniques of optimizing these things. But if suppose you have never programmed, you're just reading, okay, this is one way of doing it. There's another more optimal way of doing it. There's yet another more optimal way of doing it. But you're just reading those things. You have not ever, you have never done it practically or on your own. So that's the thing. But sometimes, but other times, you're just working on blindly. Suppose I can say from my experience during when I was developing games, I had no idea about programming. But by copy and paste, but through copy and paste, I knew that, okay, this certain pieces of code can do these things. And if I manipulate it in certain ways, okay, if I manipulate this in certain way, then it can modify the functionalities in this kind of ways. So through that, I have figured we are reading much books because or we watching much videos. Because at a time, yes, internet availability was not too high. I had to download videos a lot. So through their videos itself, by a lot of modifications, I didn't know what is more optimal or not. Just through trial and error, I learned a lot. And that is what I so even now while doing machine learning projects and those things and data analysis, I learned this that I may not know each and every what each and every line of code does, or even 5, 6 lines of code does. But I know that this combination of 6 lines of code does this certain thing. I know that, so I can use it, and by changing certain parameters or putting this line of code in certain places, I know what it exactly does. But this kind of there is something, there is an engineering perspective. That is what I'm saying. So for in the same basis, okay, you want to say something?
No, I'm just trying to repeat that. I understand what you're trying to say, and that this kind of understanding only will come with the repetition of the same thing.
Yes.
Like the more you keep creating or keep coming across that function, you will see different ways of that function being used. Theoretically, even if you understand, only when you see practically how it is being used in different scenarios, then that is when you'll be able to understand the proper working of the function. So that is when you'll have a deeper understanding.
Yes. Yes, that is what I'm saying. That is the engineering perspective, in the engineering way of looking at things. Another example I'd like to give is the think of an electrician. Maybe he doesn't have an advanced physics degree, or he has no such degrees. Most probably, might have, may not have. But even he has, that is irrelevant. Most of the training that goes to those kind of skills. Suppose in our home, suppose the fan is not working, or some electrical appliances is not working, the switchboard is not working. He knows exactly where the things. He has this practical mindset or the practical knowledge about, okay, this switch is not working means certain kind of wires are means maybe loose somewhere, or some kind of electrical. Suppose some a TV is not working or the oven is not working. Maybe there's some device inside the oven or TV that might have been damaged. But just looking into it, suppose he's just like a doctor. Just by looking at, but if you say that, for example, I said my TV is not working, he'll just look at this and see that actually what is not working. And just by looking at it, he'll know that, okay, I think so. This kind of thing means that probably this particular device is has got damaged. He has those kind of things. But suppose some other person who knows, who has a degree in physics and those things, or maybe even he's a BTech in electrical engineering, so he might know the theory behind that. Okay, this Fourier transforms and all the theory of logic gates and everything. He might know all of those things, but most probably he won't be able to solve that problem. Most probably he won't be able to solve that problem, because he has this, he knows the science behind it, he knows the science, the concepts behind it, of how it works, how the electron flows, how logic gate works, and all of those things. The electrician most probably doesn't know all of those things. Or what are logic gates or how NAND and all of those things. What are Fourier transforms and those things. But he knows that okay, certainly this is the kind of problem. I this probably this device is not working. If you replace it, it will work. So he has this practical engineer's mindset. Whereas on the other hand, scientist has the underlying knowledge about how things work. So this is a kind of difference that I found between an engineer and a scientist. So
Right.
are you able to relate what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
But, yes, again, but I think so. We even discussed it last week that for a person to actually come up with a new invention, he has to have a thorough base in the fundamentals, as well as he should have this engineering mindset as well. So that is what I think so is lacking in engineering education. But I think so even for computer science, there's still a lot of opportunity because since most of the things we have to do in computers software, so the students can try on their own a lot of things. But the things that in curriculum there isn't much practical thing there. It's mostly the theoretical side of things, which I'm not saying is bad. That is necessary, but if you're creating an engineering degree, you might as well you should actually teach the practical aspects as well about how to actually think like an engineer, and that applies more to other branches like electrical and mechanical because they actually have to work with actual physical things, and they must know about how to approach such problems. Because yes, they might study that. As far as I know, they have subjects like mechanical engineering people. They have subjects like fluid mechanics and such kind of things. Even we studied them in 11th and 12th, but they probably go into much more depth during the engineering subjects. But apart from those theoretical subjects,
But your
they
voice
should
is
also
not
need.
clear.
Can you hear me now? Hello.
It's not coming clearly.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I was saying that yes, means along with the theoretical aspects, you must also have this. What means you must also be taught about how to approach things from an engineer's mindset as well.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have anything more to add?
I'm thinking about, okay, what more can I say? Oh, yes, just one more thing. Speaking about science and how paradigms change in science. It's roughly related to it, but may not be completely related. So there's something called, there's a book named The Nature of Scientific Revolutions. Or yes, it was something like that. The author was Thomas Kuhn.
I think in
Yes,
this course also we discussed about Thomas Kuhn.
The Nature of Scientific Revolutions.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the book, but the person Thomas Kuhn has been discussed in this course.
Okay. So I haven't read the book, but I know that the gist what he's trying to say is that in science, there are linear progress. One kind of progress is that there is linear progress, and then there are huge leaps and there is a huge shift in fundamental understanding of a concept. So those are called revolutions. So one very common revolution is the discovery and the development of quantum mechanics. So before that, the people's understanding of reality was completely different. and other scientists, they made progress based on that framework itself. Within that framework, they made certain discoveries or yes, and advancements and contributions, which nowadays is called the classical framework. Like, for example, that uh, time is linear, or space-time is not curved, it's linear, and all kind of things. And you can make certain new discoveries based on those conceptual frameworks itself. But when quantum mechanics arrived, it was a purely fundamental shift, and the previous law things they no longer hold. So it's completely different. So that's an example of I would say, a scientific revolution.
Mhm. When talking about Thomas Kuhn, also, I think he gave or he defined two stages of science.
Okay.
One is called the paradigmatic stage and the paradigmatic stage.
Okay. What is it?
So pre-paradigmatic stage basically is when one particular uh, discipline of science has multiple ways of doing it.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
then there is a transition from pre-paradigmatic stage to paradigmatic stage where all the different schools or all the different ideas of practicing that particular science merges into one, or all of them agree on particular one truth.
Uh,
Then
yes.
it moves to paradigmatic stage. For example, Newtonian physics.
Yes. Yes.
Before Newton postulated all of his laws of laws of what is it called? Laws
Laws of
of
motion.
laws of motion. Yeah. There must be many different ideas floating around at the time
Hmm.
of how motion actually works.
Hmm.
That was a pre-paradigmatic stage where same idea or same phenomenon was being described in multiple different ways.
Okay.
But once all of them found the most likely truth,
Hmm.
all of them, all the different ideas, they merged together and they all agree to, uh, how would I say, all of them, they agree upon the same rules.
Okay.
So from that point on, anyone who has to study laws of motion will study the Newtonian's way of laws of motion.
Hmm.
So that
Yes.
is the transition from pre-paradigmatic stage to paradigm. So there will be a stage where there is no paradigm to that particular school
Uh,
of science.
uh, uh,
But upon a lot of experimentation and thoughts and debate, one
hmm.
particular idea will come out as the one that is the most likely,
Yes.
and that will become the norm, the paradigm for that science. So anytime anyone who will research any further about that topic has to
Will
follow that paradigm.
yes. And
Today, no one can come and say that Newton's laws of motion is wrong. I'll try a new way.
hmm.
For a long time, it has been accepted as the truth. So that is the paradigm for physics.
So and yes, and so what I said adds up to what you have said. So when a scientific revolution is what happens when there is a paradigm shift. So
Yeah.
again, as you said about the Newtonian's concept of physics, the classical approach. But then you come up through observations or experimentations or thought experiments, you come up with certain discoveries or results that you simply cannot explain with the existing paradigm. And you have to say that there has to be something different. The existing paradigm is not enough to explain certain phenomena. And that is how a paradigm shift happens. And that is what is called a scientific revolution.
Yeah.
So the shift happens there. So that is what it is. So at this moment, okay, so I mean, quantum mechanics is already nearly 100 years old. But certain things that I would say those are at the brink of scientific, those are the brink of paradigm shifts. Certain things I would say that one of them is a few examples are about genetics and epigenetics. You might have heard about epigenetics.
I'm not sure if I know what it is.
Okay. So there is certain things. The accepted norm is that certain behaviors, or not just behaviors, certain physical characteristics as well, are genetic in nature. Most of our traits, physical and personality traits, are genetic in nature. But at the same time, what epigenetics says that it can be influenced certain things through, which is not directly genetic. It can be influenced through other measures as well. So that is called epigenetics. Means maybe through thought or certain external environment that can create changes in your body. So even if there are two person with same genetic blueprint, certain kind of external or internal influences can bring about different kind of changes. Even with two people with same genetic things. So that is something that cannot be explained by the traditional way of thinking about genetics. But at the same time, the other explanation is also not being completely accepted. So they, so that, so that's one thing. And and uh, and there's other things as well. So which are not being, which are not those phenomena cannot be explained by natural phenomena, by the existing paradigms. And so what happens is that when such kind of things happen, the I would say the main defenders of those paradigms, they mostly try to attack, I won't say attack, but try to defend themselves and their existing paradigms by using certain things like pseudoscience or those kind, any kind of thing. So are you trying to are you getting what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, somewhat I understand, Bobby.
Okay.
If you continue, I'll
So
get more, I guess.
okay. So I'll give another a previous example. So as we have established, the science is what we is a mechanism of, is a process of trying to understand the world around us. So before science, there was something else. Means things like religion, or even there are various layers of science through its evolution. There have been various definitions of how things work. So during the stage of religion, when someone says that the thing is, when, who was it? I think it was Galileo who said that it is not heliocentric, or it's not, or geocentric, it's heliocentric. And it was Copernicus. But I think Galileo was the one who was killed because of saying this.
Yeah, I think Galileo was killed. Yeah.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying, is that when there is an already accepted explanation for something, and someone else tries to say that no, this is not correct, and even though he has some very acceptable evidence and proof, the initial reaction is never that okay, wow, means okay, it makes sense, we'll accept it. No, there will always be some kind of a resistance to it. People say, no, that's serious science. That person is crazy. For centuries, we know that Earth is the center of the universe. This man suddenly comes and says that no, it's sun. Sun, how can it be? God has made Earth. Earth is the center of everything. There is this resistance, even in the face of evidence.
Mm.
So that is one example. So right now, there are phenomena which cannot be explained by, I would say, the accepted paradigm of science. Things like, which again, the way Galileo was treated these days, the new scientists or the new proponents are also being treated like Galileo. They are being termed as they refer to them as pseudoscience or paranormal effects, all of those things. For example, reincarnation. There are it 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 has been so stigmatized that if you just say the word reincarnation, people will say, okay, yes, that's some kind of religious or maybe very much a pseudoscience. But
Yeah.
if you look, there are research papers where people have actually studied the phenomenon, means through interviews of people who have, so they have taken interviews of people who have described their previous lives, and they have gone on to they have gone on to do further research to validate their stories, and they have they have found proper evidence that okay, those stories are not just made up, those are actually valid stories. And those research, I mean, those kind of research have been done not on a few people, there's been done on thousands of people. And just like any other research journals, there are journals for those kind of works. I forgot the name of the journal, but is it, I don't know, was it called parapsychology or something like that? So the Journal of Parapsychology or something. So actual research have been done, but still the thing is that this kind of people will say that no, these are just anomalies. So if those kind of activities actually exist, there has to be a science that explains the phenomenon or must give a reasoning behind why these kind of things happen. But our science does not have any, the existing science doesn't have any explanation for those kind of activities. So you cannot call it a complete science unless and until it explains everything that is being observed. For example, if our science right now is not able to explain the the motion of planets, or only it can suppose only explain gravity but not the motion of planets, can you call it a complete science? No. So that's the same thing happening here. But they can, but yes, but again, there's resistance among scientists that paranormal activities are not within the scope of science and those kind of things. But how can it be? You have to explain things.
But
So
another thing about science is that the experiments are repeatable, or you can replicate the experiment or the conditions. Right.
hmm, yes,
How do you replicate a paranormal situation where it is mostly based on anecdotes?
actually, okay. Uh, Replicability in the sense that if I can show it to you that it is not being done by just one person. How it's just like an experiment. Okay, suppose I toss whatever it is, the pendulum experiment and all of those things, the
Yeah.
things that it did in school. So usually what we do is that we make an experiment and we do it multiple times and we see that the results are more or less similar. So, and suppose the laws of gravity, F equal to the formula for force due to gravity, F equal to G m1 m2 divided by r square. That is
Yeah.
a theory. That is a formula. How do you come up with it? You throw certain, and how do you prove it? You throw certain objects and then take the terms. You make certain experiments, to practical experiments, and see how it holds up with the theory. And if you consider okay, the theory, it holds up with the prediction that is made by the equation and the practical thing, then you consider it is valid. It happens multiple times. So a paranormal activity, or in particular reincarnation, if thousands of people have been interviewed and their backstory have been validated, that is not an anomaly. So okay, if not, then how will you explain it? How will you explain that one person may be lying, thousands of people from different areas, from different periods of time, have been interviewed and their backstories have been validated to quite a large extent? So how can you explain away? Or even if someone says that that is an anomaly or an error, but then you have to say that how is it an error? There are statistical tests that like even in our statistics class we have studied, like there are t-tests and hypothesis testing and all of that. So if something is statistically significant, then you cannot just say that it's an anomaly. You have to have some proof, or you have to have some theory explaining those kind of things. So that is outside the thousands of people story being validated, that itself is replicability in itself, I would say that. Did you get it, or do you have some doubts?
No, I get
regarding
what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But
because
I mean, just if it is being reported in mass,
Hmm.
then there is a grounds to say that science has to explain it, or there needs to be some explanation of how it has been happening. But
So yes, another
I'm not sure. You have to think about it.
yes. These are the questions. Means these are the questions that make us rethink about our existing paradigms. So that is what I think about the nature of science in itself. It's that it is an evolving thing, and considering at how far our civilization has come, we are still very young as a civilization. We hardly know things. Maybe during I think so a few months ago we discussed about dark matter and those things. So there I've said that we actually don't know about about 95% of our universe, of what 95% of our universe is made up of. Only 5% of our universe is made up of ordinary matter. The rest is dark matter and dark energy. We have no idea about what it is. So how can we claim that science is complete without uh, being able to explain 95% of our physical reality? So this kind of mistake has been made earlier as well, just before the quantum discovery of quantum science. I'm not sure which scientist said it. He said it means the foundations of physics has already been done. There only means the foundation has been done. We know everything about physics that is there to know. So now, right, when so the only job that scientists have left is just minor advancements or mostly technological advancements. The basics, the fundamentals is all clear. And just after he said it, and a few years later, quantum mechanics happened, and the whole shift means the whole base, the old base crumbled, and a completely new base came. So I think so you yourself mentioned that the 4 pillars. Skepticism is one of them. So we should be skeptical about the existing as one or existing paradigm as well. So and there are good reasons to be. Given that there are quite a lot of phenomena that is still unexplained, and science itself, our pursuit of science, our pursuit of trying to know the nature of reality, is still very young. So we are still not a planetary, we hardly a fully planetary civilization in the sense of the Kardashev scale. There's this type 1, type 2, type 3 civilizations. So we are very the nascent stage of evolution of the civilization. We can't claim that we know everything there is there. So our civilization is yet to become a civilization that can go across the solar system and then can go across the galaxy. Let alone galaxy, we can't even go outside our own planet. Or at least for the regular people. It takes months and months of preparation for even the governments and the private companies to just send one rocket to orbit, not even to the moon. So that's something. So anything more to add, or we can finish it?
I don't really have anything. Next time I will discuss more models and domains of this science and technology.
Okay. So we can end it?
Yeah, we can end it. Yeah.
Okay.